to accept? Greg, is there a second?
Aye.
Joe, second, Jody. Thank you, Joe.
You're welcome.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Budget report is attached. On the revenue side, there's some interest earnings shown on there. That's all on the revenue side. On the expenditure side, salary, wages. Morning, Dave. We had under progress payment to Weston Company for $500. Under other operating expenses, our New York State Economic Development Council membership, which I emailed everybody about, that had gone up a little bit, and everybody said okay to that. And work on our IDA website, and a payment to Environmental Design Partnership for their ongoing work with the wetlands investigations at the Crossroads Park. And then down at the bottom, our under mowing, that was the one single payment we made to James Esper for all of the mowing work he did for the year. So we paid that bill, and we've also sent a reimbursement request to Winstanley because they had agreed to reimburse the IDA for our costs. So we haven't received that yet, but we've sent the reimbursement request to them. And then under at the bottom of the backup generator project, we had received some of the paperwork that was outstanding. As I mentioned to everybody in my email to you, we did receive a notice from a subcontractor that they had not been paid. The basis for us sending a payment to Koval was that they would in turn use that to send that to the subcontractor, which they've agreed to do. So we made a payment of $5,000. We still owe a little over $2,000 to them, which will not be released until the final paperwork is in. That's it for the budget report. Any questions? Hearing none, will someone make a motion to accept? Mike?
Make a motion.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Dan, thank you. Any further questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Committee reports, monthly bank reconciliation, Greg?
All look well.
Okay. Under other reports, CRG, Kent, anything to offer?
I've got a couple things. You got the report, obviously.
Yes.
Just a couple of things to add each one real quick. The micro enterprise grant money, we always submit for the 300,000 every year, and we've submitted for another 300,000 because once we've allocated it out, you can ask for more. We should be hearing on that any day whether we've got additional funds. And we do have one meeting. Joe will be at with me later this week. We have two businesses actually decline the grants for different reasons, but mostly because they decided they didn't want to create a job to get the grant money. So we'll have to reallocate that to somebody. On the second one, RFP for the existing building. This came from New York State, and it was a foreign electronics components manufacturer who was looking for an existing structure. And a facility was submitted. It's confidential, so I can't talk about what it is, but we'll wait and see if we get anything back on that. The developer with Johnstown Commerce Park, I just want to let you know, is an industrial distribution developer. I was curious what that was too. About Christina, the engineering work at Johnstown Commerce Park is moving along, everything's on schedule, and we are still on the mode to hope to start marketing that site next year. The environmental consulting services with the EPA Brownsfield grant, the second round grant was for $500,000, and we're planning to do 7 phase 1 environmental reports and 5 phase 2s. Others probably aren't as much of interest to you, but the New York State Development Grant, we applied for $400,000 grant to be used for a virtual workforce tool for employers and students. The Mega Prize Grant is for $100,000. It's we're competing for it, in conjunction with several other county entities. So we'll see what happens with that. If we get it, it's to be used for a clean manufacturing company or potentially for a site for clean manufacturing, facility or operation. And last, the downtown development specialist working on the DRI project financing. Some of you may have noticed as you've gone over to Gloversville, some of these projects are now becoming more visible. Things are moving along. So pretty happy with how things are moving along. And I guess if you haven't heard, the Glove City Lofts is already starting to pursue a phase 2, which would be basically a mirror image behind that structure. Pretty much the same building, just a mirror image. So that's kind of exciting to see that starting to. There'll be another 70 units, 75 units. That's it, unless there's any questions.
Any questions? Very good. Thank you, Ken.
Thank you.
Last but not least, Mr. Roll, anything to report on
Yes,
today?
sir. Last meeting of the year yesterday. I think it's the last meeting. Awarded a bid for the site work for the Great Sacanauga Lake Discovery Center. The lowest accepted bid, a little over $1 million. The highest bid was more than double that. So we had 12 bidders.
Great.
A lot of bidders, a lot of interest. Held off on the actual construction bid until the spring. And that's that.
Good deal. Very good. Thank you, sir. Moving on to old business, just a couple of status reports, Nexus Renewables, chatted with them, Scott and I did yesterday. They're still waiting, for the town of Johnstown moratorium to expire, so that they can reapply for a new special use permit. Asked kind of point blank yesterday, if they're able to get their permit, would they still going to pursue the project? They said yes. Also advised that, again, if this project is going to move forward, the lease and some of the agreements that were previously approved by this board several years ago will all need to be updated and revised to reflect new schedule. And so there's that, they understand that. I will go over some of those things today, later today with Scott. So he's aware of those things.
Good question.
Yes, sir.
Do you know if there's other solar farms looking to come here, but because of the moratorium? I mean, is there an influx? Now, we had a lot and then they stopped it, and I think they're going to continue this moratorium, I would believe, but are there other companies like putting that pressure on the town, but saying, hey, I mean, do you know of any except for Nexus? I mean, just curious.
I'm not directly involved with that. Scott may have a better feel for that.
There are a few, from my understanding.
Okay.
Waiting in the wings.
Okay.
Okay.
Very good. Thank you.
Crossroads Park Housing, continuing to distribute information to potentially interested developers. To date, we do not have any takers. Next, county's development strategy. It was presented to the full Board of Supervisors last month. The strategy identifies 15 priority projects in the 3 subject areas of housing, tourism, and economic development. I'm going to give you all a handout that shows these. Here, could you take one and pass one down?
Thank you.
Again, MRB did it this way because this is what was asked of them. These are the 15 priority projects. There are many other projects listed in the strategy that came up during the process. And those are also included, but these were the 15 priority ones that were identified. The first one, the 5 under housing. The project description is there, and then the lead organization is shown on the right. And as you look down through that list, there's 2 particular projects where the IDA is identified as the lead organization. But we're going to go through each of these kind of quickly. The first under housing is a housing coordinator position. There is a lot to do in this county in terms of trying to promote the development of new housing. And right now, there's no one person, agency, organization, entity that has the responsibility for trying to pursue all those initiatives. And so what is being recommended is that the county create this position starting in 2026 that would take charge and be the lead in terms of trying to implement projects and initiatives to get new housing built in this county. Second is pro-housing communities. That's something that's ongoing, but in New York State, Scott, can you speak to this a little bit more, what that program is all about?
So it's basically, the state wants to see that the local municipal zoning regulations and other regulations support housing, high dense housing, or housing of all types, et cetera. So they're basically vetting their land use regulations and they want the municipality to also pass resolutions basically saying that they are pro-housing, right? That's the point, pro-housing community. But part and parcel of that, the state is really starting to tie grant funding, not just for housing, but for all types of grant funding to being required to be a pro-housing community. So it's kind of like you're,
And you have to apply to the state to get this designation.
yeah.
Okay, and right now, I think City of Johnstown is,
City of Johnstown is designated, this is their first municipality. There are several others that have taken the first step of acknowledging that they're a pro-housing community, but there's a lot of information that you have to provide in the application to the state. They want to know, obviously, your land use regulations. They want to know how many building permits have been issued for new housing going back a certain number of years. So there's a lot of other components to it, information that you need to provide.
and one of the tasks of this housing coordinator position would be to work with all remaining municipalities in the county to try to get them to receive this designation. So,
Johnstown is designated?
Yeah.
They are.
They
They're
are.
the first municipality. There are
Okay.
several other municipalities that have taken the first step. But they are the City of Johnstown.
yeah, kudos to the City of Johnstown.
Yeah. kudos to them for sure.
We got a notification from the mayor a couple of weeks ago, so that was great.
And that is action they took coming out of the work
They have-
early in the year on
Um,
this topic?
yes and no, they'd already started it,
Oh, had they?
but that, having this in here helped, initially encourage them to complete the process, so
Mhm, mhm.
it was good.
Very good.
Next, a roundabout housing hub. In particular, there's the strategies suggest that the IDA pursue developing housing in Crossroads, which is what we are currently attempting to do. So what's currently ongoing is certainly going to be consistent with what the strategy is recommending. The Tryon Residential Incubator Site. The site at Tryon, the Tryon development area. The strategy suggests that be pursued for new housing. So that's something for this board to give consideration to. And the last thing was a landlord registry and code enforcement, an attempt to try and develop a database on the ownership of apartments and other buildings in the city so that those owners could be kept in touch with by code enforcement to make sure that those properties are being maintained in accordance with the New York State Uniform Fire Prevention and Building Code, and to try and keep them in good condition.
Part and parcel of that quickly is the City of Johnstown has already started something like that. So they're actually working on that as we speak.
Gloversville doesn't have one?
I'm not sure.
Scott, under tourism, can you run through those?
So, yeah, so, the tourism, infrastructure, development, basically taking a look at, all of the tourism components that we have here, in the county. The Trails Master Plan, that's something that we already have budgeted into the planning department's, 2025 budget. That will inventory, all of the trail systems within the county. To expand and connect those trail systems, for instance, Wheeler Rail Trail, the Peck Hill Forest to the FJ&G Rail Trail. We'll be looking at finding an alternate route, of finishing the FJ&G Rail Trail. We'll look at establishing some kayak trail locations, as well as snowmobile trail systems. And the last component of that project will be doing a pilot project of looking into trying to designate an ATV trail system, most likely up in the northwest corner of our Good Host training program. That's something that came out of the Fulton Montgomery Regional Chamber of Commerce many years ago, but just never kicked off. It's basically a program where businesses can send employees to educate them on how to speak positively about Fulton County, the assets we have. One of the things that we learned many years ago when we had a few economic developers here is companies will send people to a location that they may have an interest in coming to and developing, and just, stay at the hotel, talk to the receptionist, take a cab ride, go to a restaurant and talk to people. And if their feedback is constantly, I don't know why I still live here, there's nothing to do here, blah, 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 that comes back, that looks bad, obviously, and companies may not even want to invest in this area. So that would be a program that the chamber would kick off. Enhanced public beach access. Again, we have the Great Sacandaga Lake. It's focused on the Great Sacandaga Lake. We really have a limited number of public access points on the Great Sacandaga Lake. Really, we have right now the town village of Northville in Northampton, and the town of Mayfield public beaches. We lost the town of Broad Albans last year, unfortunately, and this would look to assist or assume responsibility for one of those beaches, or maybe both. It's very difficult for local municipalities to fund those beaches. So that's something that we would look at there. And then improve signage and wayfinding. Again, this would be a marketing effort to uniform signage and wayfinding, such as, this way to farmer markets, this way to the beaches, et cetera, et cetera. So those are all ideas and components of the plan. And obviously, there's a lot more information within the plan itself. So.
Okay, the last set of projects deal with economic development. Top of the list is the building demolition and substation supporting Tryon. We'll talk about that a little bit further in the agenda for today. Second was the advance, the airport site. At the airport, behind the Sky Warrior and up to the terminal area, there's a 6, 8, 10 acres of land that sits there, and it has the potential for development. Public water is available right there. There's gas, there's electric right there. So the thought was, let's see how sewage could be dealt with there. And if there's a way to handle that, we might have, the county may have a potential shovel-ready site at the airport. One of the issues that is being looked at is that the county used FAA and New York State DOT funds way back in the 1980s to purchase that property. And so the unknown is, can the county sell that property? Or is there restrictions from those grants that would allow it to maybe just lease the property? So that's one of the things that are currently being looked at, but it's a potential for having another shovel-ready site made available. Next, advancing the Johnstown Commerce Park, which Kent talked about. That's the CRG's project down on the east side of New York State Route 30A. Advance 2 brownfield sites. That would be the former Fashion Tanning property and the building at the corner of Harrison Street and New York State Route 30A. To try to get those buildings demolished and or put back into use in the case of the Fashion Tanning site. And then the last one is a series of Smart Waters infrastructure expansion projects, which includes getting sewer all the way up Route 30 to Northville, amongst other potential projects. So that's in summary, the 15 projects. Excuse me. Any questions on any of those? And over time, there will be, Scott will be bringing to you discussions about those particular items in there that are where the IDA is targeted to be looking to pursue some of these, okay? Next, the website research project, which has been on here for a number of months. We received a proposal from Emery Designs to do that work. It was estimated at about $14,000 to do that work. This board had previously said that you would go ahead and do that and pay for that. But first, you wanted to ask your partners in this initiative, would there be anyone willing to contribute towards that cost? We asked everybody, and the Chamber and the Workforce Solutions said they didn't have any funds to be able to contribute to that. Tourism said yes, so that's something they would be considering. And Ron Peters had gotten back to us saying that he wanted to see the development strategy first to see if there was anything within the strategy that could change the perception of a need to pursue this project. I don't think there is anything in there. So we've asked, Scott asked Ron recently to let us know if the CRG would be willing to contribute towards this. I don't know, Ken, if that's been discussed at all?
We'll be discussing it at our next meeting, and I'm pretty optimistic it'll.
Okay.
Yes.
From you folks have said you would fund this whole thing, okay? Looks like there's two entities, the CRG and the County Tourism Bureau, who might contribute towards it. My question to you folks is, do you wish to proceed with that? Regardless of whether you get contributions, or do you want to wait until you officially hear from both tourism and the CRG? Are they going to contribute, and if so, how much?
I think it's something that we have said we would do. I was to the point of seeing if our partners would pay, because again, I always felt that we pay a lot of bills sometimes, and let's ask for help sometimes. Nothing wrong with that. So I would say, let's go ahead and whatever money we can receive, that's just helps us out down the road. And I think the CRG has always been helpful. We help them out, and if we get, and we don't know what the other tourism is going to do, but something is better than putting the whole 14,000 out of our balance.
Yeah, for what it's worth, I think the CRG will contribute, but I just don't think it's gonna be a large amount.
And we didn't ask for a specific amount.
Right, no.
It was whatever you would be able to contribute. If you wish to move forward, what I would strongly suggest is that before Emery Designs is hired, that we get this group back together again. Because even though some entities may or may not be contributing dollars financially, we're going to need all of those entities to commit to participate in doing this project. Okay, because it's going to require Betsy to sit down and spend time with all entities, looking at their websites. And so I just want to make sure that before they would be started, that everybody's on board with participating in this, regardless of whether you're providing any dollars or not. Okay?
I think, what was started with full intent was a good thing, so that's what came out of it. And down the road, we still have meetings and other good things can come about, so.
I think looking down the road that came out of those meetings, one of the unanswered questions is, if we got a website, who is gonna host it? Who's gonna be responsible for it? Who's gonna maintain it?
Mhm.
Who, how are we gonna pay for it in the future?
And I think that would be another topic, or the reason to get this group back together again,
Right,
because,
yeah, we can't do a one-time thing then, all right.
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 And I think that would be sort of toward the end of the process, once we've got the feedback from the project. Then we'll see what's the plan going forward, and then how do we maintain it and pay for it.
So should we try and get a meeting on the books in like January?
Yeah.
yes, after December 31st.
Yes.
That's true. December's always crazy.
Yeah, we have guests, sure, this one's.
So is there, Joe had suggested moving forward. Is there any opposition to that? Okay,
Well, I thought you said we wanted to,
but to move forward, we gotta have this meeting.
yes,
All right, so we'll have the
there you
meeting,
go.
okay,
We're planning on.
and make sure everybody, yes.
Regardless.
And hopefully by the time you actually get started, we'll hear back officially from the CRG and tourism. So,
We just don't want things to just start and then just drop like they always.
all right, moving on to item E, our potential new substation. A couple meetings ago, this board agreed to pursue looking into developing a distribution level substation that would be able to provide additional power at Tryon. National Grid asked to have a discussion about this so that everybody understood what would be involved with pursuing this type of an initiative. A Zoom meeting was held on December 3rd to discuss the details. Grid, the IDA, and Win Stanley representatives participated in the meeting. And a summary here, some of the key points that were made. Win Stanley estimates that it may need 16 to 17 megawatts of power to pursue projects on the 4 sites that they have identified out at Tryon. Vireo estimates it may need another 3 to 5 megawatts of power to complete the build out of its facility at Tryon, because they have only completed half of the interior space of their 324,000 square foot building. So the total estimated demand for new power is, best guess is 22 to 24, and that's a moving target because, Win Stanley doesn't know who the next entity they might be able to get out there and what their power demands may or may not be. But the only way to bring that much new power to Tryon would to build a new substation, tapping into the 115 kV transmission line about a mile east of Tryon. The discussion centered on the proposal to have a customer build this substation and turn it over to National Grid to own and operate. National Grid advised that they had never had a substation built by a customer and turned over to National Grid. So they would be venturing into new territory with a project of this nature. The first step would be for someone to execute what's called a support services agreement with National Grid. The support services agreement would in essence be an engineering evaluation. This evaluation would be conducted by Grid and evaluate the feasibility of developing this new substation, prepare a preliminary cost estimate and tentative schedule for implementing it. National Grid estimates that this study could cost between $50,000 and $100,000 and take 6 to 8 months to complete. The exact cost would be based upon what the final scope of work would be identified to include into the study. But once that study was completed, a decision could then be made on whether to proceed with the project or not. If the project came out that it's gonna take 17 years and cost $3 billion, probably say no. But if it comes back where it's the numbers and timeframes look reasonable, a decision point could then be made to continue to move forward with the process. National Grid estimates that it could take up to 4 years to develop a new substation. The primary reason being the time frame to have transformers built. Transformers that are going to take power from 115 kV down to 13.2. There's a backlog in getting those. And Grid also advised that they are currently undertaking a project to bring 6 to 7 megawatts of additional power to Tryon. They're currently running those new lines along Route from Route 30 in Perth. This should be completed in 2025. This is not going to be power dedicated to Tryon, but available for potential users in Tryon. So Sue and one of her colleagues within Grid is going to be drafting this agreement. This board, we had talked previously about doing a interconnect study that was estimated at $50,000 to $60,000. This is going to be similar in many ways. It's called something different.
I think you get more out of an SSA, because you're gonna get, well, granted, the estimate on cost is like a plus or minus
20%.
a good amount.
Right.
But it gives you an idea of what you're getting into, and if you say, okay, let's proceed, then there's like another level that dives deeper and gets those numbers closer.
Mhm.
So there's multiple spots along the way where you can say, no,
Mhm.
like you don't have to keep going, but.
When we talked about doing the interconnect study, it was estimated $50,000 to $60,000. I guess this board said, okay, but we're willing to proceed. My question to the board is, are you still willing to contribute this amount of dollars towards, or more even, to do the SSA?
I guess, I mean, we have to get power to Tryon. I mean, there's just no defense. That's the biggest thing that's hurting this county, I think, right now. But I just underlined the line that says evaluate the feasibility of developing a new substation. All of a sudden, we put in $50,000 to $100,000. Say, you really don't need it, and then that money is gone. I mean, who's going to determine that? Our national grid is going to determine the feasibility of whether we need it or not. We're saying we need it. I mean, we're saying, Win Stanley says 22 or 16, 17, and other ones.
Yeah, I think
I just don't want
part of here is,
go 6 months or 8 months down the road, we put our money in, hoping for, then they say, no, we don't.
yeah, I think the uniqueness
You don't
here
need
is, correct me if I'm wrong, Sue, other private companies have built substations, but it's just for their use.
Mhm.
I think this is different because we're talking about a substation that could be used by multiple end users,
No, I know.
which is something I don't think that's been done before.
And the feasibility study isn't gonna say, no, we don't think that this is viable. I mean, National Grid has done its own internal studies looking out 30 years and says we don't need this substation here. The load growth in the area just doesn't support that. So this, you guys paying 50 to 100 for this is not going to come back and say we don't need it. It's going to come back with, this is what you would need to do for that, to put a substation here.
And they're gonna say you have businesses there, but businesses won't come if they don't have a power there. It's,
It is a chicken and the
I
egg.
know, there's. Certainly we're gonna lose Win Stanley because we have no power there.
So Win Stanley's site plan was very helpful because it shows what he's proposing, the size buildings on the 4 lots, and what he anticipates for an amp draw out of each of those 4 sites. So that helps develop the load, which is a key component that National Grid would need to do this sort of study.
Crapshoot, yes.
One of the outcomes from the session was that Sue and her colleagues were going to set up a follow-up meeting with Win Stanley and Scott and I to discuss what the scope of work would be for this study. And once that's done, Grid could then come back and say, okay, the study will cost this amount, as opposed to right now, this range of 50 to 100. But one of the things that was talked about at that session also was Win Stanley's role in this potential project. Adam Winstanley expressed his support for having this SSA done. He thinks that is the correct thing to do. And he also expressed a potential interest in them building the substation. Okay. But in the question he asked National Grid was that elsewhere, he has been involved with projects where, and just recently did one where they advanced and spent $20 million upgrading the electrical service at a particular site to bring a prospect in. And that the utility company in that area then reimbursed Win Stanley for that cost of the electrical upgrades because it brought them a major customer. And so he asked, is that something that National Grid would consider here? Because that would obviously greatly impact his interest in potentially funding this. And that's, again, not something that Grid has entertained before. They are talking with their regulators to see, is that doable? And so it was left that when Grid would get back to Win Stanley and the IDA and whether or not that is something that they would consider doing. Okay.
I think if we don't spend the money for the study, we'll net, it's over.
Yeah. I got it. Okay.
Question again. You agreed to fund a interconnect study? Would you agree to fund this document, even if it goes upwards of 100,000? Okay. All right. Sounds good. Stay tuned. Once we have our conversation, we'll be going on a scope and price this thing out, and Scott will bring that back to you at some point in time formally for a final decision on authorizing an exact amount of a study. Okay? Very good. Under new business, annual invoice from Fitzgerald Morris Baker Firth.
Yeah, Joe.
You didn't sign that, did you? Yeah.
No, I didn't sign anything, Joe.
Joe, would you like to make a motion? I'm assuming.
Yes, I would love to authorize payment of the amount.
Is there a second to Joe?
Wonderful services.
Is there a second to Joe's annual motion?
I'll second.
Sign away now.
All in favor, say aye.
Hi.
Anyone opposed?
It was pretty quick this time.
Let's see, Dan, you get one of these. Sue, you get one of these. Greg gets one, and the other Joe gets one. Pass that down. Pass that down to Greg. I had inquired with folks about who would be willing to participate in the CRG's monthly meetings in 2025. We've got 4 members who agreed to do so. And there, I've given everybody your schedule for next year. And then Scott will be giving you monthly reminders as we move forward. So,
Joe Gillis.
yep. Oh, excuse me, Joe. Yeah, there's 5.
There's 5.
I get the 5th one here, but Joe's not here. So, okay.
Good. Can I switch with Joe for October, November? We're making South Carolina annual Thanksgiving thing.
Okay, we're gonna switch.
October and November. Give Joe November.
Joe Gillis.
Sure.
That work?
Yep.
Did me 3 times in a row. You're gonna be so good and you gonna do right.
Okay, last thing, not on your agenda because it just came about last night. I received a call from Randy Lott who owns the property, the former maintenance building, out at Tryon. He's, nearing completion of an agreement with an entity to lease the space, in that building. He's hopeful that that's going to be consummated here pretty quick. But, at present, he stores equipment in that building that he currently owns. And if he does lease it, he's got to get his equipment out of there. And so he asked, would the IDA be willing to rent the former Midas building, or at least the two bays in there to him. I told him that it would have to be a month-to-month lease because that property is technically optioned by Winstanley. And so if Winstanley got a company to come in there and they needed to tear that building down, he would have to vacate the premises immediately. And Randy said fine to that. I also advised him that the county does not plow snow into that parking lot. And so that at this time of year, if he needed to get in there, he would have to, plow a path to get into the building, which he said fine to. Told him that there's no power in the building. He said, understood, duly noted. The only thing he needs to do is to go out there and verify how he would secure the building. Because he would obviously want to make sure it's secure from any potential damage. So, and that would be his cost to do that.
What about insurance?
Told him that we would need an insurance certificate from him, which he said he would pursue with if this group was interested, that he would pursue that. So what I told him that I would do this morning is ask you folks for your interest. If so, I would get authorization to sign a lease contingent upon him verifying that he can secure the building to his comfort level to allow him to proceed, and two, once he gets his insurance certificate to us. He's offered $250 to $300 a month as a rental. I know you've been waiting for that number.
That'd be a Joe Gillis would.
Yeah. So again, for us to be able to generate a few dollars of revenue from the building that's sitting there doing nothing, I think it's worth our while to pursue that.
I took a tour of the Tryon building. He's done a fantastic job out. He
Yes,
said he'd be willing to show everyone. It's just, I guess he cleans up at Benjamin Moore. I think he was there. He said, anything when I see it. So I saw it like 3 weeks ago, and it's quite a remarkable thing. He said he's put a lot of money into it.
he's put a lot of money both into the exterior as well as the interior of the
Nice
building.
nice building.
And hopefully he has it leased. So any questions on this? My recommendation is to authorize the chairman to execute a lease with lot holdings for space in the former Midas building at Tryon at a cost of $250, at a fee of $250 a month.
Sounds great to me. Make that motion.
Correct?
Second.
Joe? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Very good. Under other business, this is our annual review of our internal financial control system, which is outlined here on the agenda. I'm not necessarily going to go through the whole thing, but this is our how we handle all of our money every month and every day during the course of the year. Both myself and Carol, as your CFO, have no recommended changes to our system. We think it's working fairly well. My question would be to the members of the audit committee who monthly look at records. Do you have any suggested changes, or any of the board members? Do you have any other suggested changes that you think would be worth talking about with respect to our internal financial control system?
No.
No.
Okay.
I will just simply say I appreciate the expanded format of the budget sheet.
Okay,
Makes it easier to find and I can actually read it now.
Yes, yes,
very good.
Yes, I love it.
good comment.
Before we go into executive, I would just like to, acknowledge that this will be my last meeting, as your executive director. I want to publicly thank, board members for your support over the years. It's been a heck of a ride. Started here in 1987 sitting as a board member, when I became the planning director, and then, did that for 20 years. And then, 27, when the state of New York said that the board member can no longer serve as the executive director, I volunteered to become the executive director and have been that way for 17 years. So, it's been a good run. But I want to thank Mike in particular the last 2 years. They've been great to work with. Scott, best of luck. See his smiling face now, but after this meeting, we're gonna go through everything, and if he's still here, that'll be good. Also want to thank Kara. Kara, you've been great. You guys don't understand and really see how much she provides, and her knowledge and her expertise, and the smiling face. That really appreciate all the things that you've done over the last number of years. But I just, again, when we look back at what this board has done, from building the Crossroads Industrial Park to the Crossroads Business Park to the Johnstown Industrial Park to Tram, there's 24 buildings that total over 3 million square feet of space that this board has directly been responsible. And there's over 2,000 people working in those companies, and they provide almost $130 million worth of assessed valuation that the local communities greatly appreciate. So it's been a great run. Been some tremendous experiences. I remember when I first got appointed as the planning director, we were in the midst of working with Benjamin Moore to get them to come to Johnstown.
Wow.
And I got a call from Joel Mayer, who was his family at that time owned Benjamin Moore. And he said, "We need you to come to our corporate headquarters down in Montvale, New Jersey." So I had been the planning director for about 10 minutes. I hop in the car and I go down there, and they've got a million questions and stuff. And the long and short of it, as a result of that meeting, we shook hands and they agreed to come here. And driving back, I remember coming back home and saying, "Geez, that was pretty neat. It's kind of easy." It wasn't easy. There was a great deal of what that went into that particular project, but some of the other things that when the county created its economic development program, one of the first things that the Economic Development Corporation did was to have this public forum back in 1986. And all this feedback was given to the group about what we needed to do to get economic development going. And the first thing was we need sites. So the first economic developer was Bob McNary. And he asked us, the planning department, to go and identify sites. And we identified the site where the Crossroads Industrial Park is and the Johnstown Industrial Park. Okay. And so we applied for some monies we hired an engineer. The IDA board hires the engineer, CT Mail, to engineer the plans for Crossroads Industrial Park. About $1.4 million was the estimated cost back then for the water, sewer, gas, electric, and roads.
Right. Something that too.
We applied at that time to EDA for a grant that was going to give us 20% funding, because that's all the EDA gave back then. And we had no idea where the rest of it was going to come from. So the guy's name was John Marshall back then. We submit the application. So I get a call on a Friday from him. He says, "Jim, I got some good news for you." "Oh, we got a grant." I think at 20% of 1.4 million, we're getting a $280,000 grant. He says, "Yeah, we're going to approve your grant." "Oh, good." He says, But the good news is that some other community that was awarded monies isn't taking it. So I'm gonna offer you $1 million.
Jeez.
Okay, he goes, but there's bad news. And then what's the bad news? I need a decision within 2 weeks. You remember this?
Yes.
Call Pete Wilson, sit down, call for a special board of supervisors meeting. And then 10 days later, the board of supervisors authorized $430,000 local share to get that $1.1 million grant.
Nice.
Build that park. And one of my favorite memories, I probably told someone of this, was we having a groundbreaking ceremony for Spalding Golf Ball. And they had a big pile of dirt, and all these dignitaries are up on there. We're all given golf clubs with a golf ball. And one of them's Governor Mario Cuomo. And I just happened to be standing right behind him. All of us peons were back there, and these guys were up swinging. All right, swing, and he takes a swing. Now back then I was a pretty good golfer, and he had the most god awful looking swing. And I just blew it out. Hey, go to play for $10 a hole. He turns around, looks, and he's just laughing, hysterically at the comment. His chief of staff is over there, and he gave me the dirtiest look. So, so we started getting crosswalk, but at the same time, the board of supervisors was trying to get the state to locate building a 750 bed state prison in Fulton County because of the job creation and stuff. And in fact, they had offered the site that is now the Johnstown Industrial Park as the site for a 750 bed state prison. I get a call one day, Friday morning again, and pick up the phone. Hello, hey Jim, Hugh Farley here. Oh, hey Senator, what's up? Hey, listen, all of a sudden he's, go ahead. Yeah. Finally gets bigger. I'm sorry, Jim. Senator, where are you? I'm at the dais of the Senate chamber. I'm running the Senate meeting, but he's rambling on. What is going on? So he says, they're not making 750 bed state prisons anymore. We got some money's going to be allocated to build a 200 bed alcohol and drug facility, whatever the case may be. I can get you one of those. Really? Yeah, but I need to know. I said, okay, when do you need to know by? Today. Today. Hang up the phone, track down Pete, who's at a conference in Saratoga. He comes flying back into Johnstown. We meet in his office. I call chairman of the board, vice chairman of the board, chairman of economic development committee. We all meet there. Pete walks in. He's giving me the look like, what are you doing? Explain it all to him. And they're asking me, well, what about this? What about that? That's all I was told. 200 beds, 200 jobs. And I said, you gotta give him an answer. No, tell him yes. But that's how the decision was made for that state prison to be built here. It was just, why? Yes. Just it's an interesting and an interesting story. The last one I'll move on. I remember when Fahe was coming here, interested in coming to Johnstown. I remember meeting with them and Jeff and Peter at the Johnstown Hotel, which is where the EDC's offices used to be. And then had all the Greeks there. And they're saying, we want to come, we want to make yogurt. We're going to build a 40,000 square foot facility. We're going to spend $40 million. And we're going to create 40 jobs. Okay, that was the deal. Well, before they finished, instead of 40,000 square feet, it's 400,000 square feet. Instead of investing 40 million, they invested 400 million. And instead of 40 jobs, they created 400 jobs and didn't ask for a penny. And so I'll always remember that and what a great project that was. So anyways, no storytelling. Again, thank you all. And let's call for an executive session as outlined on page 7 and 8 of your agenda. Someone make a motion?
I'll second.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Yep, thank you.
Before I leave, I just want to,
Congratulations.
Thanks, sir.
as a behalf of CRG, but also just as a community member, thank you for all you've done.
Thank you.
And congratulations on your retirement. I got a quick funny story about him. I first saw you when I moved here like 12 years ago. I went to my first Georgia Town board meeting.
Okay.
And I don't know what you were talking about, but I just remember walking out and going, I was just so impressed. I go, wow, that guy really was impressive. Little did I know I'd get to work with you later.
After 40 years, you better figure out how to do things, right?
Okay, if Kent has one, then I have a quick one too. You know how detailed he is.
I don't know what you're talking about.
When his daughter and my son were on the YMCA basketball team together at age 6, he came in with a clipboard and plays for these 6-year-olds to be running. Teams, kids are just scrambling. Our team, his daughter would come up and call run, and everybody would run to their spot.
Yeah, things haven't changed.
Good luck.
Yeah. I'll see you,
Hey, nice job on the window there.
So do you know your wife's birthday?
Here,
Is
will
there-
you be there for dinner?
Yes,
No winter storms?
yeah, no, yeah, no
Yeah.
winter storms.
I was
Motion to
brutal.
close.
Motion.
Second? Greg?
Last year was brutal. That's when I learned that my tires
All in
suck.
favor, say aye. And that's it. That concludes
Today is
2024
Yep, I
session.
saw